Well, I think this may be one of the most important videos I ever did, and hopefully I will not disappoint you. I want to give a mosaic of like what the strategies are and where the strategies are coming from, and what the modus operandi is of, say, let's call them the powers that be, or the ones that are very ambitious that want to control others, and how they are doing this, and what you can do to thwart them. Now, first off, one of the things that people have that works against them is a feeling of helplessness. Like, in other words, people will not vote because they think, well, it doesn't matter. But let's also keep in perspective that, you know, candidates don't get, tens of millions of dollars and maybe over $100 million in advertising money because they think your vote doesn't matter. That's put it at 101. Now, I also want to bring something back to home. And I know a lot of people do this. It doesn't matter what their income level is. They live beyond their means. They always have to make it look like they have more than they really have, and these type of things. They do not live within their means. Now, that's not to say that, don't have things or don't strive to do better. But what I'm saying is a lot of times people are on this debt roll all the time, and it leads to self-destruction. So sometimes people have to have a large house because, they can afford the payments. But then again, when things go wrong, they lose everything. I think a lot of times, some of our animal friends, like a cat. Here's my cat. I had to put this in here. This is my cat Boots on the top of my roof of my Jeep, just chilling out. Sometimes people just can't relax. They have to have, I got to keep up with so-and-so. I got to show what I have. I got to show I'm happy. And that's another way that leads you into the debt matrix, and it leads you to ruin. And that's what happens a lot with a lot of people because, you see that's happened to the middle class now recently, even since 2008, 2009. Despite all the numbers and all the people that are financial experts saying how we had a recovery since 2008, 2009, and now they're saying there's not going to be another recession. Well, in reality, a lot of people never recovered from the 2008, 2009 recession, except for some of the people on the very top. They did very well. But, that's part of the thing is where, they force things almost like they propagandize on the airwaves, all these ways you should be living and all the superfluous, and they take away from like what's real in the world. I also want to emphasize though, like people, since they have this like learned helplessness, they will gravitate towards strong leaders. Now, I know I'm not a fan of Barack Obama, but I'm not a fan of Jeb Bush. I'm not a fan of Marco Rubio. I'm not even a fan of Trump, who keeps, saying, make America great again, even though he was a Clinton supporter and registered Democrat. I mean, and even if these people are legit, say, there is a legit leader out there, let's look at it this way. There's only so much one individual can do for you. And since we live in a constitutional republic, we live in a land of laws. And really, what that is based upon is an educated and independent public. An independent, stand on your own 2 feet, rugged individualism public that has the brains and the know-how to judge, the candidates and make sure they stay within the limitations of the government as they've been outlined by the Constitution. Now, I want to say, though, that, what we have today, though, is people are looking for solutions through a leader because they have learned to be helpless. They have learned that, this is too much for us to handle. We got to elect somebody to fix the problems. That's where, Barack Obama came along with this. We're going to have change. I knew about it. I'm not a fan of him. I know, but there's different angles on everybody doing this. What it really comes from is us. But where the elite nail us is that they hammer us so much with advertising, overspending, being narcissistic, being superfluous, and what it takes away from is our positive attitude. Everybody's always looking for material things without actually looking for what the basis is of real life is about. That's really what it is. And, I went over these, I think this was the 1919, well, actually from the 1917 points that communists were trying to use to control America. Corrupt the young, get them away from religion, get them interested in sex, make them superficial, destroy their ruggedness, get controls of all publicity, get people's minds off government by focusing attention on athletics, sexy books and plays, and other trivialities. It's exactly what's going on today. Divide people into hostile groups by constantly harping on controversial matters of no importance. And, all this stuff actually causes people to think that they are helpless as an individual, and when a problem comes up, they do not react to the situation and try to escape it even, or try to fight it. Not only fight it, they don't even try to escape it. They just accept the consequences because they've been hammered so many different ways for either debt, through situations that have come up in politics or whatever, or situations that have come up in life, that they feel that everything is beyond their control. That's just really what the average person is thinking today. It's no longer where, mom and pop stand on their own 2 feet and they have their own house, and it's like, this is the basis of America. Actually, you can see what's going on. They're trying to break that whole situation down. The feeling of learned helplessness is like something whereby you will not be able to size up a situation and say, well, I can't, like say, for instance, maybe you can't take on, the powers that be head on, but you can still fight them back in little ways. Most people do not do that. They just accept the situation. They just accept it. They accept their fate. And what the elite don't want is people that fight back. Now, I can give you an example here. Maybe this is going to be a very politically incorrect example, but I know they talked about taking down a couple of these Confederate statues that were in New Orleans recently, and the contractors that were employed to do this, they backed down from doing it, and it turned out that the guy's Ferrari got burned up, and the employees got threatened. They said they're going to pull their business out, and there was all kinds of hate mail because people fought back. So I guess the statues are staying here, but that's not the main issue here. It's almost like if people will fight back, and they don't have to fight back in major ways. They can fight back in small ways. But once you have the feeling that there's all hope is lost, like in other words, people don't vote, right? I mean, a lot of people say, what does it matter? Well, it does matter because obviously these candidates are not spending tens of millions of dollars and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars to get your attention, to get your vote, if it didn't matter. It does matter. And, even if one person, it's only a matter of lesser of two evils, and, they got it all controlled on the top. But, that's the message of the major alternative media. The major alternative media is even pushing this message that it's hopeless. Even they're pushing this message. That's 99% of the problem. You got to have a positive attitude that you can actually get over the situation and not look to leaders that, they're going to say, tax burden for the middle America, Barack Obama, change, whatever, or whatever somebody else is going to say. I know right now that, the former Clinton Foundation donator and registered Democrat Donald Trump is now a staunch conservative talking about whatever bomb. I actually, I'm not against what he says, reality, but here's the guy that had the bone spur that couldn't go into the military. He's talking about boots on the ground and bomb the hell out of ISIS. Come on. I mean, people are all just they're all talk. They're all smoke and mirrors. People gravitate to this as a solution because people think they're helpless. They are not helpless. That is why I even put out about, get partially off the grid even. Maybe you're not going to be off the grid, but get some things to make yourself a little more independent. Anything you do. There is a lot to be said about American individualism and ruggedness, and any step you go in that direction is a worthwhile step. I know in most situations people can't be independent. They can't be just going from, I'm going to fight them, on my own, stand on my own 2 feet and fight them. You have to take what they call is the Fabian approach. I know that word Fabian has been associated with socialists, but the original Fabian was the Roman general Fabian, who realized that after the largest army that Rome had ever assembled was totally destroyed by Hannibal at Carthage, in the field of, not Carthage, but at the field of Canaan, that the Roman army could not take on Hannibal head on. It was too big for them. So what they did was they did skirmishes where the advantages were to their favor. And that's exactly that's what you call the general Fabian approach. So if you can't fight the powers that be, they're too big for you, you feel helpless, you can't do everything, there's always these little ways you can fight back. As long as you're fighting back against these major powers, it will have effect. It will have a cumulative effect. It's when you give up hope is that you have lost. And that is what they want you to do. They want you to feel as if you were helpless and you will accept your fate. America has changed greatly. I mean, when has it been that woman would get on the top of the roof of a sod house in the middle of a prairie and, fix the roof against rain and do all that manual work? I mean, today, forget it. I'm not doing that type of stuff. There's definitely a difference in morals and values and attitudes, and everybody's of the generation now, including going all the way back to even the silent generations, even had some of that before the baby boomers, even the retired silent generation. They even have that me and entitlement attitude. A lot of people do. I think when America was really great was even back in the 1800s, at maybe the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. It's going to take a lot to get that back, and it's not going to be something that you can just elect a leader. But it's that feeling of entitlement, and the attitude of having entitlement, and also that feeling of being helpless, that you accept your fate. Anything you do to be more independent and fight them is a road to going on the correct way. In other words, it's taking that general Fabian approach. You can't hit them head on. You got to fight skirmishes where you have the best chance of winning. The socialists are using that Fabian approach, but that original Fabian approach was by General Fabian of the Roman Republic against an outside enemy, Hannibal from Carthage. So, you can take this, and it's like when you are hammered so many times from so many different directions, people feel like they're helpless. But the thing is, don't get led into the trap by all this advertisement that, you must buy this now, you must have this now, you must do this, you have to do this, you have to have this, or else you're not special. I showed you my cat there sitting up on the roof of the Jeep. He doesn't really give a shit about having anything special. He just likes being on the roof of the Jeep. He sits out there. He's got a couple treats. He's like, wow, I feel like I'm the king of my world. And that's exactly how, most people need to be because, not to be just satisfied with what you have and not to say try to strive to get more. But the thing is, don't get caught up in the system of debt bondage, because that really will bring about that feeling of helplessness. Now, also want to talk about the Constitution. The Constitution, I know what it says about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, yeah. But you know what? The Constitution and the Bill of Rights didn't exist in the colonies until 1776, or the Constitution actually came about in 1783. But the thing is, it was penned by people. It came from the brains and the minds of people. It's more than a document. It's actually the righteous truth. So it's like, sometimes people can maybe argue, well, you can argue with somebody that, or whatever, some bigwig that's trying to put the hammer down on you. That's unconstitutional. But, you might even want to argue it from the standpoint of like make believe there's not even a constitution. Make believe, why would that morally be wrong, even if we didn't have this piece of paper in existence? But we do have the piece of paper in existence, and it is the law of the land. But why would that be morally wrong for them to make a law such as they're doing? There's such a thing as natural law. And a lot of the Constitution and our freedoms in the United States have come from natural law. Not just from the Magna Carta, not just from common law in England, but from natural law. The rights of all living beings to pursue their way of life, their happy, what they think in their mind will make them the most happy. The rights to pursue whatever endeavors they want, as long as they're not infringing on other people's rights. Why do other people in our government need to regulate all that? They always have an excuse, but then again, they are trampling our rights when they do that. So it's like you want to look at the Constitution because, yes, it is the law of the land, but you want to even look beyond that. But you know what they're doing? They want to make you dependent upon them. That's really what they do. There's a feeling of entitlement. The government owes me this, or the mayor can do this for me, or this politician can do this for me. This is why I got to elect this politician. Well, that's not really what the freedom of independence is about. Freedom and independence is about you, the individual, rugged individualism. And rugged individualism is the exact opposite of helplessness. The exact opposite. Because what we have in today's complicated society, in this, I guess the word probably is, it's almost like a matrix, a financial matrix or whatever. It's like a learned helplessness, helplessness. It's a learned helplessness. We have whereby people are like, they always look to, I got to call somebody up to fix this. I need to address this through my representative. I need to, somebody over there is, somebody in the mayor's got to do something. The town's got to do something. Instead of you rolling up your sleeves. In other words, how did this even come about? The Declaration of Independence. How did this come about? How did it come about in the beginning? It came about by freedom-seeking individuals. People that did not have this feeling that they were helpless. In a lot of ways, early America was like the early Republic of Rome. The early Republic of Rome was based upon independent farmers, and independent farmers were the backbone of the army. There was no standing army, even early Rome. But I want you to keep this in mind because a lot of times the fearmongers on the major alternative media, they're pushing fear, but they're also causing a learned helplessness, which means you will not react. You will not even try to escape your fate. That's what they're doing. And I think they know it while they're profiting. That's why I don't like a lot of the major alternative media. Sure, they may inform you of things, but the way they inform you of things is they make it sound like everything's hopeless. As a matter of fact, how many times have you seen, I don't want to mention any names, but how many times you've seen in the major alternative media where they say, let's get together and get, 1 million names to stop, the TPP from being signed into law and send this over to Congress. No, they don't do that. They just tell you, oh, this one's doing this and this one's doing that. And, and I got the goods on this one. But no actual effective, attempted at least effective action to stop the problem. It's almost like, if you have this log cabin and you got the alternative media telling you, well, we got termites. Oh, we got a leaky roof. Oh, we got squirrels infiltrating the chimney. Oh. But, they're not telling you, how to fix it exactly. Or they're not saying, let's get together and create an action to fix these problems. Let's get some boric acid for the termites. Let's put some chicken wire over the chimney to stop the squirrels from coming down the chimney, or whatever. Let's get some tar and pitch for the roof, to fix a leaky roof. No, they don't tell you that. They just tell you, the problem. Oh, and this guy's a solution. No, that's not it. In a way, I almost look at this video like, is this a waste of time to say this? I don't know. It's so obvious, though. But it's so obvious, like, what's wrong with even the alternative media? What's even wrong with, yes, it's important that you look at all these politicians, because all these people up there looking to get elected, they're spending tens of millions of dollars to get elected. Your vote does matter. But don't expect whoever it is that gets elected, or whoever's the candidate, that they're going to fix all your problems for you. Because then you have that attitude that you're entitled to something from the government. That's not the way it works. They're just the person that enforces the laws of your duly elected representatives that were passed in Congress. So, it's not like, this person's elected, he's going to fix the economy. No, you actually fix the economy. But, it really has to go back to another age. Maybe even before this time. Maybe this was in the 50s. Maybe this was after the turn of the war. But I also have a theory about after the turn of World War II. Why things actually changed quite a bit towards traditional values in the United States, and why we actually even had investigations of communists in our government, why that even came about. I think a lot of it was because of the influences of the American servicemen that returned from the war. Even though you didn't see one person that was out there, maybe JFK, like something like that when he was a congressman, but I'm talking about all the servicemen that returned from the World War II. Their voices were being heard in Washington, and it did change the politics of the nation that way. That's why the time in the 50s was a good time in the United States, generally speaking, because the people that came back from World War II were stand on your own 2 feet type of people. They learned from being in World War II and the harshness of the environments of the theaters of war that, what you really had to do to survive. They lost a lot of their fears. Actually, the 50s was way better than the 20s, and even during the Roaring 20s, which was a prosperous time. The 50s was actually more along the lines of what true America should be about. And then, of course, we had the blitz from the major media, the push of Vietnam, which was deliberately done as not a war, but as a police action, and had our troops with their hands held behind their backs, basically trying to fight the war. Basically to take the wind out of the sails of the independent middle class. Those are the people they used in that war, too. Not to say that the war shouldn't have been fought, but you understand what I'm saying. It was another thing to hammer the middle class to make them feel helplessness. And it's a learned attribute. So once you have that, when you're in a bad situation, you don't escape it. You just accept your fate. And what you really need to do is you need to fight back in any way you possibly can. I know a lot of times you can't fight them back head on, but anything you do, just like I was talking about going partially off the grid in the last video or a couple last videos, whatever it was, that's something you could be a little more independent. So, and also I want to say again, the major alternative media, they're actually not giving you a positive attitude. They're not pushing a positive attitude. They are pushing fear for the most part. They do not tell anything constructive to actually how to fight back, other than products maybe that they sell. Buy this, buy that, you can fight them back, because I'm selling it right here, right now. And you probably know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a lot of them like that. Well, obviously, I don't sell anything. I bought some products, but It's only something I think is good. Not that I have association. I'm not selling or nothing, or have a financial association with it. But it's like people tend to want to get to a leader that's going to bring about change. That's another buzzword. And you know what happens every time they're hoodwinked? Really, the solution is you got to be independent. But the problem is you're not going to just be able to do it like all at once. It's almost like, maybe to be independent is almost akin to like running a marathon. You're not going to be able to just get up and run a marathon one day and just do it. You're going to have to get out there and start walking a mile or running a mile and going up to 2 miles or up to 3 miles and get there step by step before you run the marathon. And, anything you do to get to those goals has a cumulative effect. So the cumulative effect of the masses is far bigger than the elite. But, at the same time, you don't want to freaking freak out about all this shit all the time. You want to be a little bit like my cat here, Boots, sitting up here on top of the roof of my Jeep. He's not worried about every damn thing. I gave him some treats. He's like happy. He's sitting there. It's like 60 degrees out in the daytime. At least in the daytime. He's got his heating pad at night. He's not looking for a bigger cat house. He's not looking for, I want to buy up all the cat food in the town and be wealthy. No, he's just happy. So sometimes, you don't want to get caught up in a matrix where you're always trying to keep up with people. And I know a lot of times that's a major problem because then people get into that debt slavery and then they're helpless in that way. But a lot of times people are helpless in many different ways. And when they're helpless and they feel they're helpless, they don't fight back. And that's exactly what the elite want. They don't want you to fight back. And you don't have to fight them like get out there in the streets and, storm the castle or something like that or whatever. You don't need to do that all the time. You just got to, anything you do could have an impact, especially if it's millions of people doing it. And they don't want people realizing that they got power. People do have power. Maybe not as an individual so much, but as an individual you got to be independent. But the cumulative, you take all these individuals standing on their own 2 feet, and there's hundreds of millions of them or tens of millions of them. Well, it does become a major thorn in the side of the elite, and guess what happens? We move in the right direction we want to move. But fear is your biggest enemy. And fear creates that situation where you feel helpless. And when you're helpless, you just stand there and you get creamed by the Mack truck just like the deer staring at the headlights coming straight at them at the road, right? I mean, and you do not react to the situation. Sometimes maybe the way you want to react is to run. Get the hell out of Dodge. But, you got to do something. You got to do something. So, I want to put this in perspective because a lot of people probably aren't getting the whole way things are going. And, I smell something up with this crappy alternative media. And, the alternative media, I think, is a lot of the alternative media is actually in on the communist plan, like by encouraging civil disorders and all that type of stuff. Yeah, you don't want to, you don't want to even get involved in that type of stuff. It's only when they're trying to really put the screws to you. But like when you just get out there and you say, "Oh, I hate Wall Street. Oh, I'm going to carry a sign," and whatever. I mean, yeah, sure, but you can make your freaking voice heard in a lot of different ways that can actually give them a problem. And so anyway. Yeah, and the other thing is, too, the final step of making people helpless is to register and confiscate all firearms and to make people safe, and then the population will be really helpless. So you don't want to ever get in a situation where you're helpless. You want to always be in a situation where you can fight back if need be.